All right, welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're really going deep.
Oh, are we going deep?
Deep into Memory Lane, the house on Charles Place. You familiar?
Oh, yes. Sri Lanka Vivid Memories really dives into that sense of place, doesn't it?
It really does. And it got me thinking about the power of place, how certain places can just shape who we become.
It's true. The environments we inhabit, the people we encounter within those spaces, they all leave their mark.
Exactly. And this excerpt, it's told from Sisila's point of view. He's actually reflecting on his past while he's recovering from a car accident.
So there's that element of trauma, almost like the accident has unlocked these potent memories.
Yeah. And the memories, they really revolve around Charles Place. It's this house.
Sounds simple enough.
It is, but also it's so much more than just a house. And to understand that, we need to understand a bit about Sisila's background.
Okay, paint me a picture. What's his life like before Charles Place enters the scene?
Well, his father left when he was younger, and as you can imagine, that had a huge impact on the family dynamics. His mom and his siblings, they became very protective.
So a pretty restricted home life. Understandable, given the circumstances.
Right. But that restriction, it kind of fueled this yearning for freedom in Sisila. And that's where Charles Place comes in.
Oh, the contrast. So we have this young man craving freedom, and then he stumbles upon this house.
Imagine a bustling neighborhood in Sri Lanka. Nothing fancy, just a regular street. And tucked away on Charles Place, there's this house.
Doesn't sound particularly extraordinary.
From the outside, not really. But step inside and it's a whole different story.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's so special about the inside?
It's a haven for Sisila and his friends. Think lively discussions, debates about everything under the sun, philosophy, physics, you name it.
So it's a space for intellectual exploration, a place where these young minds can really stretch and grow.
Exactly. And it attracted a diverse group, too, all drawn together by this shared love of learning, a thirst for adventure.
The excerpt explicitly mentions that there's no smoking or drinking there. It really emphasizes that focus on personal growth, on exploring ideas, not just indulging in typical vices.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you might think that a place with so much freedom, so little structure, would descend into chaos. But that doesn't seem to be the case here.
What was it about Charles Place that kept things grounded, that gave it purpose?
Well, for one, there was this incredible open-door policy. Friends, strangers, everyone was welcome. There's a line about how they'd often offer guests fresh coconut water straight from the trees outside.
Ah, that touch of Sri Lankan hospitality, it creates such a welcoming atmosphere, doesn't it?
And then there's this detail about how they'd give nicknames to everyone who passed by. Fresh eggs, hockey sticks, even Bob Woolmer. It's so playful.
You know, those nicknames, they might seem silly, but I think they speak to something deeper. A sense of community, of shared experience. It's these little things that transform a house into a home, right?
Absolutely. But initially, Cecila's family wasn't so thrilled about him spending so much time at Charles Place. Understandably so. They worry it might be a bad influence.
Protective families, they always mean well, but sometimes that worry can lead to misunderstandings.
Right. But then, a pivotal moment. One of the friends has a bicycle accident.
Oh, that sounds serious.
It was, but in a way, it was also a turning point. Everyone rushed to be with their friend, including Cecila's family.
So the worlds collided, in a sense.
Exactly. And during all the commotion, they end up having this long conversation with the injured friend's dad. He was a staunch socialist, initially skeptical of Charles Place. But after that talk, something shifted.
That one conversation and that human connection, it changed his perception.
There's a quote from the excerpt. He tells his wife, "Nothing to worry about son going there. They are not the bunch of youngsters that I initially suspected them to be." Powerful, isn't it?
It really highlights how Charles Place wasn't just about having fun. It was fostering genuine connections, challenging preconceived notions.
And that acceptance, it paves the way for Sisila to fully embrace his time at Charles Place. And it's amazing how those experiences, they rippled outward.
In what way?
The excerpt goes on to describe how these friends, they went on to have these diverse and successful careers. Professors, military officers, bankers, lawyers. It's like Charles Place laid the groundwork for their achievements in the world.
So was it just the intellectual stimulation that prepared them, or was there something more?
I think it was a combination of factors. They were constantly engaging in intellectual debates, but they also placed a strong emphasis on personal values over material possessions. and they were exposed to a wide range of viewpoints.
I see. So it wasn't just what they learned, but how they learned to think, how they learned to interact with the world.
Exactly. And all of that, it equipped them to navigate different paths, to thrive in a complex world. But how?
Well, that's what we'll uncover as we continue to delve deeper, because this story, it doesn't end there. Those diverse paths really stuck with me too. Like, did those early days at Charles Place, did they actually set them up for success?
It's a great question. Like, how do you measure the impact of a place? The excerpt gives us a clue, though. It mentions this faded social media photograph.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting, right? It's like a window into their lives years later.
Yeah, and one of the friends comments on it. He talks about these high-heeled boots.
High-heeled boots? Okay, that's random.
But here's the thing. He borrowed those boots for his military interview. And then, get this, he wore them again on his engagement day.
Wow, the same boots for two totally different occasions. That's amazing.
It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it? It shows that adaptability, that resourcefulness.
Yeah, they learned to make boo with what they had, and they thrived.
And it challenges our assumptions about success, too, right? Do you need all the fancy things, the expensive gadgets, or is it more about resilience, about creativity?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what truly matters in the grand scheme of things? Those boots, they become a symbol of their journey, don't they? A link to a time when they were figuring things out, relying on each other.
Absolutely. And another friend in the photo, he talks about yearning for the openness of Charles Place, especially compared to the burdens and clutter of his life now.
Oh, that's interesting. He contrasts the physical clutter with the mental freedom he experienced back then. So maybe home isn't about a specific place, but a state of mind.
It's that sense of belonging, of connection, something he feels is lacking in his current environment.
And it speaks to that deeper longing for simplicity that we often associate with nostalgia.
Yeah, but they weren't just hanging out at Charles Place, right? The excerpt talks about how they're reveled in intellectual sparring sessions, debating Vedanta, quantum physics, pronouncements of gurus, politicians, the whole gamut.
So they weren't afraid to tackle the big questions, to dive into different fields of knowledge.
It was like their own personal university, driven by pure curiosity. But I do wonder, did that openness to different ideas, did it ever create tension or conflict?
It's a good question. The excerpt doesn't mention any specific conflicts, but it's safe to assume that differing viewpoints would sometimes clash.
So how did they handle those clashes?
I think their shared respect for each other, their commitment to intellectual honesty allowed them to navigate those disagreements productively.
So instead of avoiding conflict, they embraced it as an opportunity for growth.
Precisely. And maybe that's a valuable lesson for us all. True intellectual growth requires us to engage with diverse perspectives, even those that challenge our own beliefs.
But wouldn't that kind of open dialogue also risk creating divisions, especially when discussing sensitive topics?
That's a valid concern, but it seems like they managed to cultivate an environment where respectful disagreement was not only tolerated but encouraged. It's about fostering an atmosphere of mutual respect where everyone feels safe to express themselves.
That makes sense. True connection doesn't require everyone to agree on everything, right?
Exactly. It's about finding common ground while acknowledging and respecting differences. And perhaps that's why they remained such close friends. Even as their lives took different paths, they learned to appreciate the richness that diversity brings.
So beyond individual success, do you think their experience at Charles Place has any implications for society as a whole?
Well, their story definitely offers a glimmer of hope. It suggests that fostering environments where intellectual curiosity, respectful dialogue, and genuine connection are prioritized can have a ripple effect.
It's like Charles Place becomes a microcosm of a better world we can aspire to create.
And it all goes back to that initial question, can a simple place truly shape who we become?
Charles Place suggests that it absolutely can. So as we move towards the final part of our deep dive, I want to pose a question to you, the listener. What is your Charles Place?
What experiences or spaces have shaped your values, your worldview, your approach to life? Think about it.
We're back, and I've been thinking about Sisila and his desire to revisit Charles Place. It's like he's searching for something more than just bricks and mortar.
Yeah, it's almost like he's trying to recapture a feeling, a specific time in his life.
Right. And you know what it reminds me of? That idea that certain places hold a kind of emotional echo. Like they become repositories for memories, for a version of ourselves we maybe long to reconnect with.
Oh, absolutely. I've totally felt that. Certain places, they just transport you back, don't they?
They really do. And it ties into that whole thing about nostalgia. Why are we so drawn to the past? What do you think?
Well, on one hand, it's comforting, right? Thinking about simpler times, maybe a time when we felt less burdened, less responsible.
Like a yearning for that carefree feeling, the way life felt before things got complicated.
Exactly. But there's a flip side to nostalgia, too.
Like what?
It can hold us back if we're not careful. If we're so focused on the past, we might miss out on the present.
So, how do we find that balance between honoring the past without letting it, consume us?
I think it's about recognizing that the past, it's part of who we are, but it doesn't define us. We can learn from it, draw strength from it without letting it dictate our present.
So, integrate those lessons, those memories into our lives now.
Exactly. It's like instead of trying to go back, we can bring the essence of those experiences forward.
And, when I think about Sisila and his friends and how they all took such different paths, that's kind of what they did, isn't it?
You're right. They didn't try to recreate Charles Place in their adult lives, but they carried those core values, those principles with them.
It wasn't about the physical space, it was about the mindset, the way they approached life.
And that, I think, is the most important takeaway for our listeners. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to think about what your Charles Place is.
Those experiences, those spaces that have fundamentally shaped who you are today.
Hold on to those, cherish them, and think about how you can bring their essence forward into your life now.
It doesn't have to be some grand gesture, just small, intentional acts that embody those values, those connections that matter to you.
Because sometimes the most profound transformations, they start in the most unassuming places.
Just like the house on Charles Place.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring. Tough Day 89.